Hey, sleepless friends, before we begin tonight, I want to give you a little heads up. The story I'm about to tell is real, intense, and, at times, heavy. It talks about life during the Holocaust, and some parts might be hard to hear. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you can pause or come back later. Otherwise, let's take a deep breath, get cozy, and begin this journey together. Tonight, your name is Tomi Reichental. You were born in Slovakia and live in Ireland for over 60 years. You are Jewish and you are a Holocaust survivor. You are considered one of the last witnesses to this horrific crime that happened. For you, the Holocaust is not only about the 6 million Jews who perished. For you, the Holocaust is also about racism, the loss of freedom, loss of dignity, humiliation, loss of education, confiscation of property, enslavement, starvation, torture, mass executions, and of course the so-called final solution to the Jewish question, which was decided on January 20th at the 1C conference. There, 15 high-ranking German officers sat around a table, enjoyed a 5-star dinner, drank the finest brandy, smoked cigars, and within less than 2 hours decided the fate of the entire Jewish population of Europe, 11 million people, including only a small Jewish community in Ireland. Fortunately, the Germans never came to Ireland, so they were spared. You are born in Slovakia, in a small farming village called Mat, about 90 kilometers from Bratislava. Your father is a farmer, your grandfather owns the village shop, and your family is respected and well-liked in the community for generations. Your family has been living in Slovakia since at least the late 1700s, probably longer. Slovakia is your only home. Your father serves in the Slovak army, an uncle is among the first pilots of the Slovak Air Force, and your grandfather sits on the village committee. People often come to your family for advice, whether they need a good doctor or a lawyer, because the Reichentals are trusted. But everything changes in 1939, when Germany invades Czechoslovakia, annexes the Sudetenland, and imposes a puppet government in Slovakia. The president, Joseph Tiso, a Roman Catholic priest and outspoken anti-Semite, surrounds himself with nationalists and extremists. With no television, internet, or wide access to newspapers in rural areas, information is limited, and propaganda spreads mainly through the churches. At Mass, priests openly blame Jews for the country's problems, and slowly hatred grows, especially in rural Slovakia, where the church holds enormous influence in this Catholic country. Slovakia becomes very close to Nazi Germany, even joining the German-Japanese axis. This means that whenever Slovakia needs help, Germany supports it, and vice versa. During the war, ammunition, heavy equipment, and manpower pass through Slovakia to the Polish border, and Germany pays for these services, which boosts Slovakia's weak economy. Because of this close friendship, unlike most of Europe, Slovakia is not directly occupied by Germany but instead becomes an independent Slovak republic under Nazi influence. During this time, many young Slovak men and women volunteer to work in Germany to support the war effort. It is estimated that over 100,000 Slovaks work in German ammunition factories and engineering plants, producing tanks and heavy equipment. This boosts the Slovak economy, since these young workers send their wages back home. Their cooperation strengthens the Slovak government's ties with Germany. But alongside this cooperation comes increasing pressure from Germany regarding the Jews in Slovakia. It is not long before the Slovak government introduces the first racial laws, known as the Jewish Codex. This set of laws has 270 paragraphs restricting every aspect of Jewish life. For example, Jews must wear a yellow star from the age of 5 whenever they leave the house. They are banned from national schools, from cinemas, theaters, public parks, and swimming pools. In other words, Jews are completely ostracized from Slovak society. You consider yourself Slovak, but suddenly you become a stranger in your own land. Propaganda plays a crucial role in shaping public opinion against Jews. Newspapers publish headlines praising the new racial laws and claiming they are exemplary for all of Europe. Caricatures depict Jews as dangerous, greedy, or outside society, suggesting they no longer deserve protection under the law. Church sermons reinforce these ideas, blaming Jews for the country's problems, from economic difficulties to moral decline. Slogans and graffiti target Jewish shops and homes, encouraging discrimination. This constant stream of negative messaging dehumanizes Jews, normalizes their exclusion, and makes violence against them seem acceptable or justified. Jews cannot complain to the authorities because the law does not protect them. Ordinary people, repeatedly exposed to these ideas, begin to believe Jews are outsiders and a threat, which allows persecution to escalate and creates an atmosphere of fear, silence, and complicity. At this time, you are only 6 years old. You have just started school in your village, but once the racial laws come into force, you are expelled because you are Jewish and must go study in a neighboring town. In your village, you never wear the yellow star, since everyone knows your family and there is no police presence to enforce the law. Your parents choose not to tell you much about persecution, as they do not want to frighten you. When you move to the Jewish school in the nearby town, where about 5,000 Jews live, you remember your aunt sewing the yellow star onto your coat the evening before. In towns, Jews usually live in specific quarters, and the police patrol these areas. Anyone caught without the star risks arrest and harsh punishment. You recall asking your aunt what the star is for, and she tells you, "We are Jewish, and we must wear it." You are very innocent. Nowadays, a 6-year-old knows far more about the world thanks to television, the internet, and newspapers. But back then, you know almost nothing beyond your village, and the reality of what is happening to Jews in Slovakia comes to you only slowly. At this time, you do not know much about what is happening in the country. When your aunt tells you, "We are Jewish, and we have to wear the star," you do not ask questions, you simply go to school. For a couple of days, your aunt goes with you because the Jewish community lives in a specific part of the town. The community hall, synagogue, and school are all very close, about 200 to 300 yards from your home. After 2 or 3 days, she tells you that you can go on your own. That is the first time you realize that you are being hated. Walking alone to school, you encounter children without yellow stars, and they shout insults at you. "You dirty Jew. Smelly Jew." You are completely innocent and do not understand why. Over time, the harassment grows worse. They spit at you and throw stones. You run all the way to school and back in order to avoid them. Sometimes they catch you, kick you, and then let you go. It is a very hard time to be Jewish. Around that time, a high-ranking German officer named Dieter Wisliceny arrives in Slovakia and becomes an advisor to the Slovak government on Jewish affairs. He also begins gathering detailed information about Jewish people in Slovakia, where they live, their businesses, and professions. The Germans want this information because they already have plans for what they intend to do with the Jewish population. By late 1941, Germany needs more volunteers to help with the war effort. Meanwhile, Joseph Tiso set up a dictatorial, fascist government. Anyone with a different political opinion or anyone spreading rumors against the government risks arrest and sometimes never returns. Many Slovaks began to hate the Tiso regime. When the call goes out for young Slovak men and women to volunteer for war work, the response is slow. Some extremists in the government suggest sending Jewish men and women as forced laborers to Germany and Poland. Wisliceny goes to Berlin, consults his superiors, and agrees to this arrangement. In early 1942, the first arrests of young Jewish men and women begin in Slovakia, including some of your teachers. In February 1942, your school is closed, and your education ends. You won't return to school until early 1946, after the war, which means you completely lose your basic education. Starting school at age 10 with 6 and 7-year-olds is embarrassing and demoralizing, and you will have to work very hard to catch up, but eventually, both you and your brother will succeed in life. As more young Jewish men and women are deported, you see the Slovak government realizing that removing them leaves behind families, children, mothers, and the elderly who need care. A delegation goes to Berlin again, meeting with Adolf Eichmann, who organizes deportations to extermination camps. The agreement has several points, but 2 stand out. First, Slovakia must pay 500 Reichsmarks for each Jew deported, supposedly to cover their upkeep and work training. This is unique, no other country pays Germany for deporting Jews. Second, before any Jew is deported, their Slovak citizenship must be revoked, leaving them completely under German control. Deportations from Slovakia begin in March 1942 and continue until October 1942. Around 85,000 to 90,000 Jews, about 3% of the population, are deported. 52 transports carry between 1,000 and 1,500 people each, totaling about 58,000 Jews. After the war, only 280 to 500 of these survived. Among the victims are 35 members of your family, your uncle, aunt, grandparents, and cousins. You remember playing with them during holidays, but when they are taken, you say goodbye, never knowing that within days or weeks, they are murdered in Auschwitz. At the time, the Slovak government is deeply unpopular, and eventually, the population rebels. On August 29, 1944, there is an uprising against the regime. Slovakia is not occupied by Germany because it is friendly at the time, but many soldiers defect from the Slovak army and join the rebellion. Police defect and join the rebellion as well, leaving Tiso powerless to stop it. For the first time, Germany occupies Slovakia in August 1944 not because it wants the country, but to save its friendly regime of Joseph Tiso. Within 3 weeks, the uprising is suppressed. Many Slovaks lose their lives, over 177,000 young men and women die fighting, unable to resist the might of the German army. But the resistance continues. Unfortunately, when German army units and Adolf Eichmann's Gestapo arrive in Slovakia, the persecution becomes very serious. The Gestapo joins the Slovak police and the Hlinka Guard, and together, they place spies in villages and towns to monitor the remaining 25,000 Jews. You know that sooner or later, betrayal is inevitable. At this time, news already filters in about what happens in extermination camps, so you decide to leave the village. During the first phase of deportations, March to October 1942, Jews who are not useful to the economy, small shopkeepers, government employees, and discharged Jewish soldiers, are taken. Your father, however, is a farmer, which makes your family useful to the economy. Therefore, in this phase, you are not taken. But now, with Slovakia occupied by Germany, the Gestapo actively enforces anti-Jewish persecution. You realize no document will protect you, so your family decides to leave the village. Because your real surname is Reichental, you cannot travel safely. You are clearly Jewish and not German. The Gestapo monitors every train station, and soldiers check identification at every crossroad. You need false papers. The priest of your village, a friend of your parents who does not preach hatred and is Christian, offers to help. He warns your mother that conversion would not protect you, as only conversions before 1922 are legally recognized. Instead, he obtains false papers for your family with the typical Slovak name Vid. Your parents drill it into your head daily. From today, your name is Thomas Vid. The priest also prepares you and your siblings for Roman Catholic school. You attend lessons with him for about 2 weeks, learning prayers, how to cross yourself, grace before meals, holidays, and the stations of the cross, so you appear knowledgeable and avoid suspicion in a national school. In September 1944, your mother, brother, and you leave the village for Bratislava to pick up your grandmother. Your father stays to care for the farm and livestock, trusting that Slovak locals will warn him if authorities arrive. You spend only 2 or 3 days in Bratislava when a postcard arrives from your father. I'm alive, don't worry. You do not know where he is or what happens to him, but you are relieved. After the war, you are reunited with him. Your father tells you his story. One day, he walks in his fields with the family dog. A Hlinka Guard lorry approaches. He does not hide, but one of the men shouts, "That's a Jew," and your father is taken. He cannot collect clothes or personal items. He is put in a detention camp in Slovakia, then loaded into a cattle cart, likely bound for Auschwitz. The transport occurs at night to avoid public observation. One man in the cart, a Hungarian crook and safecracker who has escaped twice before, cuts a hole in the carriage door and tells others to jump if they want to save themselves. You see the man remove a blade from a suitcase handle and carefully cut a hole in the door. You and your father, along with others in the cart, realize this is your only chance. One by one, people jump from the moving train into the night, risking injury or death, but choosing freedom over certain murder. Your father grabs the opportunity and jumps. You do the same in your imagination, feeling the terror and relief of escaping. Once outside, you move cautiously through the fields and forests, avoiding main roads and patrols. You rely on local knowledge and sympathetic Slovaks who quietly guide you, offering food and shelter, knowing that discovery could mean death for them as well. Every moment is tense, every sound is a potential threat. Yet, you also feel a determination to survive, to protect your family, and to honor those already taken. Eventually, your father reaches a safe village. You reunite, sharing relief, fear, and hope for the future. You know that your survival depends on constant vigilance, false identities, and the kindness of those willing to risk everything to help you. Every day, you practice caution and remember the lessons taught by the priest, how to pray, behave, and appear as ordinary Slovaks. You understand that the war continues around you, and the Gestapo, the Slovak police, and the Hlinka Guard remain vigilant, but for now, you are alive. You carry the memory of the family members lost, the uncle, aunt, grandparents, and cousins, and you feel their absence deeply. At the same time, you recognize the courage and ingenuity that allowed your survival, false papers, careful planning, and the support of allies who risk everything to save you. In this way, you live day by day, alert and cautious, carrying both grief and hope, understanding that every step forward is an act of defiance against the forces that sought to destroy your family and your people. You remember the name Tomas Vid, your new identity, as a shield that keeps you alive, and you continue to navigate the dangerous world around you with the knowledge that survival is both a gift and a responsibility. You see the cattle cart. They close it from the outside with a hook, so you cannot open it from inside. But the man with the blade cuts a hole, opens the door, and jumps out. Your father, standing not far from him, jumps out as well. After your father, another man jumps. Only 3 people jump from the cart, even though there are about 50, because not everyone has the courage to leap from a fast-moving train into the darkness. You follow as your father and the others move through the forest until they meet the resistance army, the partisans. You join them, fighting with them against the Germans until the end of the war. Your father speaks perfect German, so he becomes an interpreter for a Russian officer interrogating captured German soldiers. He also carries explosives on sabotage missions. He fights against the Germans until the end of the war and, thankfully, survives. On October 16, 1944, your mother goes to pick up her mother from a laundry shop. She leaves you and your brother in a photographic shop about 300 yards away and says she will return with your grandmother before going to the train station. When your mother enters the laundry shop, she sees many police inside. Her mother is there, beaten, her face swollen. Your mother quickly pretends she is there to collect laundry. Someone betrayed your grandmother. She is 76, very old. The police beat her to find out who cares for her, and she names your mother and her brother. When your mother enters, 2 tall men enter as well. You immediately recognize them as the Gestapo by their long leather coats, armbands, and boots. They ask your brother if he is Jewish. He denies it, saying his name is Miklo, but they continue to beat him. Then they turn to you. You deny being Jewish too, saying your name is Tomas Vid. But they know, and they beat you as well. Your brother protects you, and you finally admit you are Jewish. You are taken to the shop, and there you see 13 members of your family arrested that day. You are then taken to the Gestapo headquarters in Bratislava and kept overnight. The next morning, you are sent to the detention camp in Seard, Slovakia, where a selection takes place. You see families brought before a high-ranking German officer, Alois Brunner, who decides who lives and who dies. Young men and women go to the right, married couples, children, and the elderly to the left. Your group of 13 is split, 7 go right, 6, including your grandmother, aunt, 1 cousin, your mother, your brother, and you, go left. You and the adults realize the terrible meaning of this selection. It happens quickly. Your aunt does not even kiss her husband goodbye, you only wave. The group on the right is sent to Sachsenhausen and Buchenwald, working in stone quarries with minimal food, freezing temperatures, and 12-hour days. Life expectancy is 2 to 3 months. Only 1 person of the 7 survives, your 15-year-old cousin. The others perish. Brunner escapes after the war, hiding in Syria. He never faces trial, dying there 4 years ago. On November 2nd, 1944, you are thrown into a cattle cart. You lie on the floor with buckets used as toilets. Once the doors close, your civilized life ends. You have no privacy, minimal food, little water, and are crammed with about 50 people. You travel for 7 days, sometimes witnessing death. The stench, heat, and lack of air are unbearable. The cart has only 4 vents. Occasionally, when the train stops on sides, you get some water and food. On the night of November 9th, the train stops. Guards with dogs push you out into the rain and darkness, shouting, "Schnell, schnell." You march through the forest on soggy, difficult terrain. Soldiers with weapons push you relentlessly. Your grandmother struggles, being 76, without protective clothing. For 2.5 hours, you march through mud and cold. On the horizon, you see a tall chimney glowing. Adults fear it is a crematorium, a place of death. You arrive at large gates with watchtowers and machine guns. You are led through the camp to a large hut and told to sleep. Exhausted from the cramped cart, you collapse on bunk beds, fully clothed. After a few minutes, you hear shouting, "Appel, appel, roll call." You realize you are in Bergen-Belsen, built in 1939 for French and Belgian POWs, later converted for Russian and Polish prisoners. In winter, temperatures drop to -15 to 25 degrees Celsius. Many prisoners died building the camp. By 1943, the Germans convert it into a detention camp for 25,000 people, mostly Jewish, but also Gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, LGBT, and political prisoners. When you arrive, the camp is hell on earth. Starvation, typhus, tuberculosis, disease, and filth surround you. You see skeletons of men and women, heads shaved, wearing striped pajamas, wandering aimlessly. This is your new reality, a world of constant suffering, fear, and struggle, where survival is the only goal. You cannot see any attributes at first. If there is a woman, it takes weeks before you realize it. You are in a women's camp, where the camp hospital is located. These women are inmates in the hospital, but the hospital is not there to cure anyone, it is there to hold people in their last days. They come practically to die. You watch these women walking slowly, sometimes falling, like children. When they get up, you know they have another day to survive. Most never rise again. This happens every day, several times, and you witness people dying in front of your eyes. Life in Bergen-Belsen is extremely cruel. It is not an extermination camp in the sense of gas chambers or mass executions. People die slowly from starvation, disease, and cold. If you get typhus, diarrhea, and dehydration, you cannot collect food, and eventually, you die. This does not happen overnight, it takes weeks or months. It is a painfully slow death. Some inmates, desperately, try to end their lives. At night, they run toward the barbed wire and climb, knowing they cannot escape. Every 300 yards, there is a watchtower. You hear shots at night, and in the morning, 2 or 3 corpses lie against the wire, victims of escape attempts. Your day begins with roll call. It is not like any roll call you know, it starts at 7 a.m., and you must stand until 8 o'clock in freezing cold. You wear only the clothes you have brought, you do not yet wear striped pajamas. Supervisors arrive, young SS women, like models, with tailored uniforms, lacquered nails, lipstick, and polished boots. They count you meticulously, treating you as dirt. You are filthy. Clothes worn day and night, never showered, with only tubs of freezing water outdoors. 2 blankets are shared among 6 people. By 6 months in, clothes are falling apart, and you stink. After roll call, you get breakfast, 2 slices of bread and black coffee. Lunch consists of turnips cut into squares, boiled in water, sometimes a potato floats in the water. Dinner is 2 slices of bread with black coffee, occasionally a small piece of margarine or jam. This menu never changes. Your intake is around 600 calories a day, a quarter of what you need to survive. The diet is equivalent to 6 crackers, but you starve not for a day or a week, but for months. Your body consumes itself. You become a skeleton. When liberated, you are immediately hospitalized, otherwise, you would have perished within weeks. Every day, you see people dying. Special commando units, called Z Commando, collect the corpses. They enter each hut with carts on wheels. They pick up corpses by hand or leg, throwing them onto the carts. When full, the carts take the bodies to the crematoria. Bergen-Belsen has crematoria to burn the dead because the Germans want no graves, no evidence. They burn the bodies and dispose of the ashes. The crematoria work 24 hours a day, without pause. During the day, smoke spreads over the camp. There is a constant stench of burning flesh. At night, you see a glow rising from the crematoria. This continues from the day you arrive until liberation. By January 1945, the Germans are losing the war. They evacuate prisoners from the west, marching them east to Germany and Czechoslovakia. Auschwitz is evacuated as well, holding over 150,000 inmates. Auschwitz is a slave labor camp surrounded by industry, but it is also the most horrific extermination camp, with up to 2 million deaths. The inmates march east because roads and railways are bombed. Trains cannot come, carts cannot come. Tens of thousands walk for days. You hear of a march starting with 16,000 people. By the time they reach the destination, only 10,000 survive. 6,000 die along the way. These are the death marches. Many inmates arrive at Bergen-Belsen, over 35,000. The camp population grows rapidly from 25,000 to over 60,000. Huts built for 150 to 180 people now hold 600 or more. Congestion is extreme. An epidemic of typhus breaks out. Hundreds die daily. By February and March, about 500 people die each day. The crematoria cannot handle the corpses. Bodies pile up outside the huts. When liberation comes, 20,000 to 30,000 corpses lie around you. As children, you play among them on what used to be grassy areas. The corpses decompose, rot, and smell unbearably, but you get used to it. You continue to play, knowing liberation is near. People from Auschwitz tell you that freedom is coming, but it takes 4 months. In March, tragedy strikes. Your grandmother dies. You see your mother and aunt crying. Z Commando soldiers enter your room, pick her up, strip her frail body, and throw her onto the cart, taking her to the pile of corpses outside. You want to see her buried, but she lies under the heap. Finally, on April 11, 1945, you notice no guards in the watchtowers. Something is happening, but no one leaves the camp, fearing a German ambush. People ransack remaining food. There is no water, the Germans sabotage the pumps. You drink rainwater, knowing diarrhea could kill you. At midday on April 15, 1945, you hear a rumble through the camp. Jeeps, armored vehicles, and lorries enter. Soldiers shout, louder, "This is the British Army. You are liberated." You do not fully understand liberation yet, but you know you are free. A film crew in the lead jeep records the event, the first footage the Western world sees of Bergen-Belsen. People around the world know that massacres are happening, but the film of Bergen-Belsen is so unbelievable that the camp becomes notorious after liberation. Years later, you watch it again in archive footage. You see corpses being pushed by bulldozers into large pits, piles everywhere. One day, you examine the film frame by frame, looking for yourselves as children standing at the barbed wire. Your brother is there on top. You are somewhere nearby, perhaps behind one of the other children. This is the moment of liberation. Bergen-Belsen is built in the middle of a forest. Corpses lie decomposed for weeks and months, stinking around you. A group of women sits nearby, cooking, eating in the midst of this open graveyard. You are witnessing the extreme dehumanization of people. A commanding officer prepares a medical team to enter the camp, describing it as the horror camp. On April 17, 1945, he addresses the team. There is no organization, no food, half-starved and emaciated inmates roam the camp, reduced to an animal level. You see women crawling on hands and knees, too weak to walk, huddled together for warmth. Dead bodies are left lying for days. Bulldozers are needed to move the corpses into pits. Reverend Morrison, an Irish chaplain with the British Army, writes to his sister, he buries over 15,000 people, focusing on the dying rather than the dead. Graves hold up to 5,000 bodies each. The horror is overwhelming. Bergen-Belsen is not technically an extermination camp, but over 70,000 people perish there. Of Slovakia's 85,000 to 90,000 Jewish population, only about 17,700 survive. Among the victims are 35 members of your family. Trials are held in Lüneburg for 42 guards, 12 are sentenced. The camp commander, Joseph Kramer, called the Beast of Belsen, shoots inmates who approach the kitchens. Corpses remain as warnings to others. You reflect on the lessons for today, especially for young people. The Holocaust does not begin with gas chambers, it begins with whispers, town-by-town abuse, and finally murder. Do not be a bystander when you witness bullying or discrimination based on nationality, religion, or skin color. Stand up, because inaction allowed horrors like this to happen. The Holocaust is unique, it must never be compared lightly to anything since. You remember the words of Yehuda Bauer, written in 2001, "The horror of the Holocaust is not that it deviated from human norms, but that it followed them, showing that it could happen again, perpetrated by anyone, against anyone, with all of us as potential victims, perpetrators, or bystanders." Recently you finally have the courage to speak about it because you think that you owe to the victims that their memory is not forgotten, and while speaking to young people the memory of the Holocaust will eventually be carried on when we are all gone. You have spoken to over 70,000 students in Ireland, and you travel all over the world. You've been several times to the United States and to England, you've spoken to German students in Germany, in Slovakia, and more recently you were also in South Africa. 12 years ago, you received a big surprise when you were notified that, for your work, the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Joachim Gauck, awarded you the Order of Merit. You also received an additional award just after 1 year, this time from the Irish people. You had been chosen by popular vote here in Ireland to be the Person of the Year. You are very proud of it, because if one considers that 70 years ago you were an inmate in a concentration camp, and now the President of Germany has awarded you this honor, it is truly remarkable. And now, as the story slowly fades, let yourself sink deeper into calm. Feel the peace around you, let your thoughts float away, and drift softly into sleep, safe, relaxed, and completely at ease.